The man who taught an entire generation about peace died surrounded by chaos. The voice that preached unity spent his final days isolated from everyone who loved him. And the artist who valued truth above everything had his last words questioned by the world. This is the tragedy of Guru, hip-hop's most underrated philosopher, and the mystery that still haunts the culture today. If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Before the world knew him as the calm, conscious voice of real hip-hop, he was Keith Edward Elam, a thoughtful kid growing up in the Roxbury section of Boston. Born on the 17th of July, 1961, Keith came from a family where excellence wasn't optional, it was expected. His father, Judge Harry Elam, made history as the first black judge appointed in Massachusetts and later became Chief Justice of the Boston Municipal Court. His mother, Barbara, was a librarian who transformed their home into a sanctuary of knowledge, filling every corner with books, jazz records, and intellectual conversation. Education and culture ran through that household like blood through veins. But don't mistake privilege for softness. Roxbury in the 1970s was alive with contradictions. On one hand, you had the sweet sounds of funk and soul drifting from apartment windows. On the other, you had poverty, racial tension, and the raw survival instincts of the streets. Keith saw both worlds. He experienced the structure and discipline his parents demanded, but he also absorbed the grit and authenticity of his neighborhood. That duality, intellect meeting street wisdom, would later become the foundation of everything he created. From an early age, Keith was mesmerized by rhythm and emotion. He'd sit by his mother's record player for hours, head nodding to John Coltrane, Miles Davis, and Thelonious Monk. His mother later recalled how he'd get lost in the music, not just hearing it, but feeling it in his bones. When hip-hop started spreading from the Bronx to cities across America, Keith was hooked instantly. But it wasn't about fame for him, it was about expression. He saw hip-hop as the perfect vehicle to merge rhythm with message, street talk with social truth, poetry with purpose. By high school, Keith was filling notebooks with rhymes, crafting words like a philosopher more than a rapper. He attended the prestigious Noble and Grinnell School, and later enrolled at Morehouse College in Atlanta, the same institution that produced Martin Luther King Jr. But the traditional path felt too confining. He transferred back to Massachusetts, attended classes at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and even taught for a short time. Imagine that. Before Gang Starr, before the albums, before the legacy, Guru was literally standing in front of Boston classrooms teaching kids. His students remembered him as calm but firm, always pushing them to think deeper. One student once said, "You could tell he saw the world differently, like everything had a deeper meaning." That's exactly how he approached rap. He wasn't trying to outshine anyone. He wanted to enlighten people. That's why he eventually called himself Guru, short for Gifted Unlimited Rhymes Universal. It wasn't just a cool stage name. It was a mission statement, a philosophy, a promise. In the mid-1980s, while Boston's local scene was bubbling with new acts, Keith began performing at open mics in small clubs under the name MC Keithy E. He recorded a demo called Cold Cold World, and you could already hear it, raw, socially conscious, way ahead of its time. The seeds of what would become the Gang Starr sound were already planted. Simple beats, deep thoughts, no gimmicks. But Boston, for all its musical history, wasn't where hip-hop careers were born. New York City was the beating heart of the movement, the place where legends were made. Keith knew that if he wanted to make a real impact, he had to go where the culture lived and breathed. So, in the late 1980s, he packed his bags, left behind a stable teaching job, left behind everything familiar, and headed to New York. It was a risky move, man. But Keith wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing truth through music, and that search would lead him to a partnership that would change hip-hop forever. When Keith arrived in New York, life wasn't glamorous. He crashed on couches, handed out demo tapes on street corners, and tried desperately to get his sound heard in a city that never slept and never stopped moving. The first version of Gang Starr was actually formed before DJ Premier joined. It was Guru with a few local DJs and producers, releasing early singles like The Lesson, but nothing really caught fire yet. Still, Keith's voice, that deep, deliberate, monotone delivery, stood out. Some people didn't get it at first. They said it was too flat, too calm, too boring even, but that was his magic. While everyone else in hip-hop was shouting and boasting, flexing and fronting, Guru made you lean in and listen. Every bar sounded like a thought, not just a rhyme. Every verse felt like wisdom being passed down, not just performed. That monotone style would later become one of hip-hop's most distinctive voices. Not flashy, but hypnotic. Not loud, but powerful. He once said, "I rhyme from the heart, not from the hype," and you could feel it in every syllable. During those early years in New York, Guru absorbed the city's raw energy like a sponge. He spent nights in Bronx and Brooklyn clubs, meeting underground artists, feeling the pulse of real hip-hop culture. He watched, he learned, he evolved, and then, in 1988, fate stepped in. A young DJ from Houston named Christopher Martin, better known as DJ Premier, was also grinding in New York, looking for a serious MC to match his beats. When Guru and Premier crossed paths, something just clicked. Their connection was instant. Intellect met rhythm. Boston met Brooklyn. Discipline met creativity. And hip-hop history was about to be made. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated, so make sure to subscribe for more untold tales. From that point forward, Keith Elam, the son of a judge and a teacher from Roxbury, fully became Guru, the voice of a movement. The classroom turned into the recording booth, and the lessons became rhymes. He wasn't just rapping anymore, he was teaching through the microphone. And with DJ Premier by his side, crafting those dusty jazz loops, crisp drums, and turntable cuts, Gang Starr was born. Together, they would build something that transcended music. They built a philosophy. Their early work came through the Wild Pitch label with the debut album No More Mr. Nice Guy in 1989. It wasn't a huge commercial hit, but it set the tone. Songs like Manifest and Positivity show what they were about. Wisdom, truth, and lyrical control. No gimmicks, no overproduced tracks, just beats, bars, and soul. Guru once said, "We're trying to educate people, not just entertain them." And that summed it up perfectly. While other rappers in the late 1980s were chasing trends, jumping on whatever sounded hot, Gang Starr was carving out their own lane. Their sound was minimal but powerful. Those jazz samples gave it depth, and Guru's calm delivery gave it weight. You didn't just nod your head to their music, you thought while listening. That's why real heads respected them early on. By the time Step in the Arena dropped in 1991, people knew these two were different. Premier's production had evolved, cleaner, tighter, with that signature swing, and Guru's lyrics hit like spoken philosophy. Tracks like Who's Gonna Take the Weight and Just to Get a Rep were straight reflections of the streets, but with moral lessons woven inside. He wasn't bragging about violence or money. He was breaking down what it meant to survive with integrity. What made Gang Starr special was balance. Premier built the atmosphere, and Guru filled it with meaning. You could almost say Guru was the teacher, and Premier was the soundtrack to the lesson. Together, they built the foundation of what many call true school hip-hop. Still, during these early years, they were underrated. They didn't get the mainstream shine that other groups received. But underground, they were gods. Then came Daily Operation in 1992, and the momentum kept building. The album was darker, grittier, more introspective. Songs like Take It Personal and Ex-Girl to Next Girl showed Guru's range, moving from social commentary to personal reflection with ease. But it was around this time that Guru started experimenting with something revolutionary. He wanted to bridge the gap between jazz and hip-hop in a way no one had done before. Not just sampling jazz, but collaborating with actual jazz musicians, creating something entirely new. That vision became the Jazzmatazz series. In 1993, Guru released Jazzmatazz Volume 1, and it was unlike anything hip-hop had heard. He brought in legends like Donald Byrd, Roy Ayers, and Branford Marsalis, blending live instrumentation with rap vocals. It was bold, risky, and brilliant. Critics didn't know what to make of it at first, but over time, it became recognized as groundbreaking. Guru proved that hip-hop could evolve, could expand, could speak across generations. He showed that the culture his parents raised him in, the jazz records his mother played, could talk directly to the streets he grew up on. It was beautiful, man. It was unity through art. But even as Guru was breaking boundaries and earning respect, something was shifting. Success in hip-hop often comes with pressure, temptation, and people who don't have your best interests at heart. And while Guru preached peace and positivity in his music, his personal life was becoming more complicated. Tensions were quietly building, and the man who taught the world about balance was slowly losing his own. By the mid-1990s, Gang Starr had reached their creative peak. Hard to Earn dropped in 1994, and it was raw, uncompromising, and powerful. Tracks like Mass Appeal and Code of the Streets became anthems. The album went gold, and Guru and Premier were finally getting the recognition they deserved. But even with success, Guru remained humble. He never chased the spotlight. He never flexed with jewelry or fancy cars. He stayed true to the message, and that's what made him so respected. Then came 1998, and with it, Gang Starr's magnum opus, Moment of Truth. This album was everything Guru stood for distilled into one project: deep, reflective, honest, and timeless. The title track, Moment of Truth, was a masterpiece of introspection. Guru's lyrics felt like a man looking back on his life, assessing his choices, accepting his flaws, and still finding peace. And then there was Above the Clouds, featuring Inspector Deck. That song became an anthem, a meditation on legacy and perseverance. The beat was haunting, the lyrics were poetic, and the message was clear: keep climbing, even when the world tries to bring you down. Moment of Truth was a critical and commercial success, but it would also be the last time Guru and DJ Premier truly collaborated at their highest level. After that album, something changed. The partnership that once felt unbreakable started showing cracks. And while they'd release more music together, the magic wasn't the same. Guru was pulling away, and no one really understood why. Behind the scenes, Guru's health was declining. In the early 2000s, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a rare and aggressive form of cancer that affects plasma cells in the bone marrow. It's painful, exhausting, and often fatal. Guru kept his diagnosis private for years, not wanting the world to see him as weak or broken. He continued making music, continued performing, continued teaching through his art, but the disease was taking its toll. Around this time, a man named Solar, real name John Elam, no relation to Guru, entered his life as a manager and producer. Solar promised to help Guru with his solo career, to guide him through this difficult period. At first, it seemed like a partnership, but slowly, something darker began to emerge. Guru started becoming isolated. He stopped communicating regularly with DJ Premier. He distanced himself from his family. Friends who had known him for decades said he felt different, distant, almost controlled. DJ Premier later described this period as heartbreaking. He'd call Guru, and Solar would answer, saying Guru was too busy or unavailable. When they did speak, Premier said Guru sounded tired, strained, not himself. The man who once preached unity was now surrounded by division. The man who valued truth was now trapped in a web of manipulation. And the worst part? No one could reach him to help. In 2009, Guru suffered a cardiac arrest and fell into a coma. He was rushed to the hospital, fighting for his life. His family wanted to see him. DJ Premier wanted to see him. But Solar controlled access, claiming Guru didn't want them there. Then, in the cruelest twist, a letter surfaced, allegedly written by Guru himself, titled Guru's Last Will. In it, Guru supposedly denounced DJ Premier, accused him of disloyalty, and claimed he wanted nothing to do with his former partner or his family. The letter praised Solar as his only true friend. When that letter went public, the hip-hop community was stunned. Fans couldn't believe it. Premier was devastated. Guru's family was outraged. Many believed the letter was manipulated or even forged entirely by Solar. The language didn't sound like Guru. The tone felt off, and the timing, released while Guru was unconscious and unable to defend or clarify his own words, felt sinister. To this day, the authenticity of that letter is questioned, and to this day, it remains one of the most painful controversies in hip-hop history. On April 19, 2010, at just 48 years old, Guru passed away. The voice that taught so many, the man who gave hip-hop a conscience, was gone, and instead of the world mourning in unity, his death was clouded by anger, confusion, and heartbreak. DJ Premier released a statement expressing his grief and his frustration, making it clear he believed Solar had manipulated Guru during his final years. Guru's family echoed those sentiments. Solar, facing massive backlash, eventually disappeared from the public eye, leaving behind unanswered questions and a legacy stained by controversy. The funeral was tense, emotions ran high, and while the world said goodbye to a legend, the people who loved him most were left wondering what really happened in those final years. How does a man who preached peace and positivity end up surrounded by chaos? How does someone who valued loyalty die estranged from the people who built him up? It's a tragedy that still haunts hip-hop today. But here's the thing about truth: it outlasts lies. And here's the thing about legacy: it outlasts controversy. Despite the pain surrounding his death, Guru's music didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. His voice, that calm, steady, monotone flow, continued to echo through speakers, headphones, and studios around the world. New generations discovered Gang Starr for the first time and fell in love with the message. Old heads revisited the albums they grew up on and remembered why they mattered. And slowly, the focus shifted back to where it belonged: the art, the wisdom, the truth. DJ Premier, despite his heartbreak, refused to let Guru's legacy be defined by its tragic ending. For years, he carefully collected unreleased verses, protecting them like sacred artifacts. Then, in 2019, almost a decade after Guru's passing, Premier released one of the best yet, a full Gang Starr album built around those vocals. The album hit like a time capsule. Hearing Guru's voice again over fresh Premier beats brought tears to fans everywhere. Tracks like Family and Loyalty, featuring J. Cole, reminded the world exactly why Gang Starr mattered. It wasn't about nostalgia, it was about timelessness. The way Premier mixed Guru's verses with new collaborations made it feel like he never left. And when J. Cole rapped, "Guru, the king, the teacher, the legend, forever," it sealed the legacy in stone. This twist shocked the world, and if you never want to miss stories like this, Subscribe to Legends Underrated today. That release reignited love for Gang Starr across generations. Younger fans discovered the catalog for the first time, diving back into Step in the Arena, Hard to Earn, and Moment of Truth. Meanwhile, older heads revisited the records they grew up on, remembering where they were the first time they heard that voice over Premier's dusty drums. The respect became universal again. Outside the music, Guru's hometown of Boston began honoring him as a local hero. Murals went up in Roxbury, and community programs used his lyrics to inspire youth about self-respect and education. In classrooms and workshops, lines from his songs became lessons about resilience and self-worth. The man who once taught in real classrooms was still teaching, just through a different kind of microphone. Over time, the noise surrounding his final years started to fade, replaced by the sound that mattered most, his music. Hip-hop historians now place him among the greats, a master lyricist who merged intellect with soul, bridging the gap between street wisdom and spiritual balance. DJ Premier summed it up best. Guru was peace. Everything about him, his voice, his message, his energy, was peace. And that's exactly how people remember him today. Guru's story may have ended in tragedy, but his words became eternal. His rhymes still echo in headphones. His lessons still guide dreamers. And his presence still lives in every artist chasing truth over hype. He wasn't just part of hip-hop history, he is hip-hop history. When we look back on hip-hop in the 1990s, you can't write that history without Gang Starr. While the West Coast had its gangster anthems and the South was finding its sound, Guru and DJ Premier built something timeless in New York, something spiritual. Their music wasn't just about survival, it was about self-discovery. It told you, you can be from the block, but you can also be wise. Guru gave hip-hop permission to think deeper, man. He proved that being conscious didn't mean being soft. That's why his monotone flow, that calm, steady delivery, was so powerful. It wasn't emotionless. It was controlled emotion, like he'd already seen the chaos of the world and decided not to let it shake him. You hear that in songs like Moment of Truth, Above the Clouds, and Code of the Streets. Every line sounds like advice from someone who's lived the pain and found peace. That's why fans still quote him like scripture. What makes Guru's story so emotional is the contrast, the peace he gave to others versus the turbulence he faced himself. The man who taught unity ended up surrounded by division. The artist who rapped about truth had his final years clouded by lies. It's heartbreaking, but that's what makes his story human. And maybe that's why it still resonates today. Everyone's been through betrayal. Everyone's lost someone they love. Everyone's felt misunderstood. Guru's journey reminds us that even the strongest souls can break, and even broken souls can leave behind beauty. When Premier released one of the best yet, it was more than an album. It was closure. It was two brothers reconnecting through art across life and death. And hearing Guru's voice again, even posthumously, reminded everyone why he mattered. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was restoration. The sound of hip-hop healing itself. You can hear it in the reactions from fans across generations. Old school heads who grew up on Mass Appeal said it felt like being young again. New listeners discovered him and said, how did I not know about this dude? That's what legacy is. When your art keeps introducing you to people long after you're gone. And maybe that's the poetic part of Guru's story. He always said he didn't care about fame or awards. He cared about truth. And truth lasts longer than fame ever could. Fame fades, money fades, trends fade, but truth echoes. Even now, when hip-hop gets criticized for being shallow or repetitive, you'll always find people saying we need more artists like Guru, because what he stood for, wisdom, self-respect, unity, never goes out of style. So when people debate the greatest MCs, some talk about flow, some talk about punchlines, Some talk about numbers, but the real ones, they talk about impact. And if you measure by impact, Guru belongs right there with the giants, Rakim, Nas, KRS-One, Tupac, because Guru didn't just rap, he taught. He taught through patience, through discipline, through art. His legacy isn't built on controversy or spectacle. It's built on truth and purpose. His death may have left questions, but his life gave answers. It taught us that greatness doesn't always come with a spotlight, and that sometimes the most underrated souls leave the deepest marks. And maybe that's the most fitting ending for a man like him. No loud finale, no grand exit, just timeless wisdom still floating through the speakers every time that premiere beat drops. So the next time you hear that scratch, that jazz loop, that calm voice spitting bars of truth, remember, that's not just a song, that's history talking, that's Guru. And for real, the story of hip-hop wouldn't be complete without him, because even if his name isn't shouted in every top 10 list, those who know, know. Rest in peace to the teacher, the poet, the legend, Guru. Gone but never forgotten. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Guru gets the recognition he deserves? Should he be mentioned alongside the greatest to ever do it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep his legacy alive together.